Abraham, as he was renamed by God, left Ur of the Chaldeans because God made a very special promise to him. God promised to give Abraham and his descendants a land. And while God's promise was kept, sorry to ruin the surprise, the promise would not be fully realized for a very long time. As God himself explained to Abraham, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. You, however, will go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here." Abraham was not the one to conquer the Canaanites and take possession of the Promised Land. In fact, the only plot of ground within the Promised Land that Abraham would possess was a field with a cave near the city of Hebron. Abraham purchased the land as a burial ground for his deceased wife Sarah. One relatively small field with a cave. That was all Abraham would possess of the Promised Land. Abraham died at the age of 175 and was buried in the Promised Land, in the cave of the field he had purchased, in that one tiny little piece of the Promised Land he possessed. Had Abraham died disappointed? Had he died feeling as if God had somewhat, if not entirely, failed to keep his promise? After all, the only part of the so-called Promised Land that Abraham possessed was a small swath of land he had purchased with his own money. God had told him to look north and south, east and west, to see the land of promise. But for what purpose if that promise was only for his descendants hundreds of years later? Abraham, from a human point of view, would have been justified to have died disappointed or even angry with God. Abraham did not, though. Abraham, as the book of Hebrews tells us, and I am paraphrasing to some extent here, died in faith. He did not receive the things promised, but saw them and welcomed them from a distance. He was an alien and stranger on earth who was looking for a homeland. He was longing for a better country, a heavenly one. He was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. How about us? Are we seeking to make this earth our home? Are we surrounding ourselves with material possessions in the hopes of creating an illusion, trying to deceive ourselves into thinking we will not die, we will not leave this world, we will not ever say goodbye? Are we trying to fill our hungry, thirsty souls with the food and drink of this earth, to somehow, some way find satisfaction and contentment with the here and now? Or are we willing to live and die in faith, as Abraham did? Are we longing for a better country, a heavenly one? I understand it is not our natural inclination to wait for home. Humanity was created in their home, and we ought not to have ever left it. But we did. We were forced to leave it because we ate of the forbidden fruit. We rejected God's good laws. We rebelled against God's good kingship. Now, not later, we want to be in paradise, in Eden, in that garden in the east. Now, not later, we want to be home. But if we want to be really, truly, forever home, we need to wait, just for a little while. We need to wait. We need to hunger and thirst. We need to yearn and long for a better country, a heavenly one. We need to look forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God.